Greetings. This is Arvette McLean of Speak, the Universe Listens.
We cherish that. We love that particular piece of it because it
teach people like, hey, it's okay, change.
New ways to view age-old challenges. Change your thoughts, change your life. Step into the bigness of you.
Ain't no stopping us now. We're on the move.
Greetings and welcome to today's episode of Speak, the Universe Listens. And today's topic is Don't Let That Stop You. So again, we are talking about redefining common knowledge.
Right.
And so there's certain things that we all are used to thinking, feeling, doing, and in order to have a life that you absolutely love, some of those things really don't work for us. And so we want to work on shifting those thoughts a little bit. And one of the things that we are really focused on right now is talking about the whole concept of us being connected to the source of all that is. So we are connected to the voice of God, the mind of God, to all that ever was, all that is, and all that ever will be. And with that connection, there is nothing that is not possible for us. And so again, today's topic, don't let that stop you.
Don't let it stop you. Don't let it stop you. Oh man, so much I think that we put limits on in our life, and the moment we sit back and we take those limits off, imagine the possibilities that we can have. And even for myself in life, I put a lot of limits on things because that's what I was taught. You know, I was taught to, you can't do X, Y, Z, or it will be, how are you going to do that? You know, and so by having those thoughts in my head, just listening to that, just play in my head, I automatically set limits on the things that I can do for myself. And it got to a point as to where when I just started to transform myself and started to do something really different, that I realized, I was like, wow, I'm doing something that I thought at one time that I put a limit on. I'm doing it. I'm actually like, I'm living this. And I said, okay. And that just changed my whole narrative, on my life. And I thought that was just awesome. But one thing about it was, doing that, I had to teach myself. I had to learn. And one thing about it is, a lot of us, we want so much, but we fail to sit back and take the initiative to teach ourselves on some things. And it can be the simplest of things, For me, one thing was when I came back from Maryland, back to Virginia, I really started reading a whole lot more, and started reading self-transformation books. And the reason why was because, I was at a point as to where I wanted to change my life, and I wanted to, get in touch more spiritually, because I recognized that set with me a little bit more better. And so I started to read up on it a little bit more, understand it, started to practice those things, and my life started to really do a 360 turnaround. So I would tell anybody, when you say you can't do, it's nothing to stopping you, you're more than capable of doing it. You just have to sit back and put a little bit of effort in teaching yourself and knowing that you got it.
Yeah, so I've recently wrote an email to people on my email list,
Uh-huh.
and it basically was talking about the difference between like publishing, doing a traditional publishing route, or self-publishing, and like, you know, what are the differences or whatever.
Right.
And one of the emails that I received back was a person was like, thank you for sharing this. And she said, it's so many people who fail to be great simply because they don't know how to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said, just you sharing, you know, this information on how to do things,
Right.
that's very helpful. And I was like, that's so true. Like, we do get stuck right there because we don't know how to do stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I'm that person, like, I don't know how to do anything, right?
Yeah.
But people think that I know how to do everything, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's like an illusion, so to speak. And the thing is, I don't have to know how to do anything because I'm tapped into a source that knows everything. And so it's the only thing that I have to do is to define what it is that I want.
Mhm.
And so in me defining that, and it may not always be clear, like a lot of times people think they have to define what it is they want to do.
Right.
But really, what you want to define is, how do you want to feel?
Mhm.
And so I have a kind of good example, because I just recently wrote like all these children's books, right? I never had a desire to write any children's books. Like, that was never in my head
Okay.
to do that. But I did have a desire to spread this information to as wide of an audience as possible because I know how life-changing it was for me. And so, you know, for people who don't know, like, I spent the beginning of my years just like in total misery. And just used to struggle and hardship, and that's all I thought life was about. I couldn't even understand, why would God put you here just to be miserable? Like, my life I was just miserable.
I
And
know, I've been there.
I did not want to live. I did not want to live next day. I couldn't understand why people thought life was anything that they wanted. And so now here I am, totally different. Like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna live to be 123, and you know, I'm just like excited about life. I'm excited every day. But it was because I learned of my connection to the source of all that is. And so, but in that, again, I don't have to know how to do anything. I just have to put out there what it is I want. And so that's what I wanted. I want to share the changes that happen with me, with everybody, in hopes that, you know, there'll be people who can grab onto that and then see wonderful changes for themselves. And so when I sat down, I did sit down to write something. I sat down to write something, but I wasn't trying to write a children's book. And when I sat down to write, the words just flowed through me. So I didn't have to sit and think like, okay, what am I going to put in the children's book? I just let it flow through me. Right. And so I believe that it's like that with everything. Like, if I just put out there what it is I want, sometimes it's what do I want to do, and sometimes it's how do I want to feel.
How you want to feel?
Something else that's bigger than me will come and tell me what I need to do.
Okay. So I would say, if anything, you know, it's just really important that we teach ourselves, you know, and just recognize that anything is possible. You know, just take that limitation off of your life and the things that you think that you cannot do. I mean, because, like I said, for me, for myself, just looking over life, there's so many things that at moments I felt like I couldn't do, because I had the voices in my head playing back like, how you gonna do that, Steve? You can't do that, you know. And I told myself, I can do that, you know. And yeah, I just really got in tune with myself, and I said, you know what, ain't nothing stopping me. There's nothing stopping me. And I just started to make things happen slowly but surely. And the journey has just been lovely. So, you know, like I said, I'm still growing, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And I, like, a lot of times people say you have to work hard for whatever it is you want. And my thinking belief is you have to put it out there what it is that you want.
Sure.
And it has to be aligned with who you are. And again, a lot of times people don't know who they are. They're not in alignment. They can't hear that voice that talks to them that's trying to guide them because there's so much internal chatter.
Right.
So of course the first step is getting to know, getting in touch with the bigger part of yourself, bigger than this part. And once you're starting to tap into this more frequently, like I'm not just this, I'm not the limited small self that I pretend to be, I am so much bigger than that. When you start to tap into that, you realize I can tap into you.
Mhm.
You know, I can tap into this flower, I can tap into everything. And one thing, I did this twice, like kind of like in succession, like close together. So I'm trying to think of which story I'm gonna tell. But one time I had to run a race, and let me just tell you, I probably wasn't gonna win that race. The odds were stacked way against me for winning this race.
Right.
And you know, it was like it was called a dash for the cash. And
Okay.
so if I won this race against the elites, then I would win money. And so it was like, you know, they do it every year, and so it's kind of like a big deal for the people who run or whatever. And so basically I would get a head start, and then I would have to outrun the elites, right? And so long story short, they weren't giving me enough of a head start. Like, I don't run that fast. Like, even with the head start that they gave me, it was literally impossible for this me to run that fast, right? And so anyway, I had to do all kind. You know, I had hired a coach, and you know, all kinds of stuff like that. So I did the best that I could in terms of training and preparation. But one of the things that I did was talk to FloJo, Usain Bolt, you know, like all the running greats, the Jesse Owens, and so I'm like calling upon them, asking them to infuse me with whatever it is that they have and make their legs do what they do or whatever. And anyway, needless to say, I did win the race. I won that cash. I won the cash. But, and you know, I've had other situations where certain things it was like impossible for me to do. Like, I have no idea how to do it, but I called on the knowledge of the greats, and you know, of course I prayed and all that stuff, but it's just like it just magically happens because I'm tapped in to the source of all that exists.
And that's something that I have to do at times myself, you know, because at moments I be thinking to myself like, all right, now, how? I hit myself with the question, how am I going to do this? And I'm like, all right, you know what, hold up. Let me talk to my ancestors real quick, and I'm gonna get the ball going, you know. And then after a while, I let the how fade away, and then it's like, bam, it just started to happen because I put my attention out there, and I noticed, you know, as soon as you put your attention out there, and you forget the how, then things start to flow the way that you want them to flow. You're surprised yourself because then when it happens, it's like, well, okay,
Exactly.
you're like, okay.
Yeah. And so it's like instead of you having to beat your head against the wall
Right.
to figure out what I gotta do next, or whatever, it's like you just know, you just get an impulse or the book will fall off. I've literally had a book fall off the shelf.
Really?
Yeah, like I'm at the bookstore and I'm wandering through the bookstore and then the book just boop, and I'm picking it up and I'm like, oh,
Oh.
that's exactly what I need or whatever. But you start bumping into the people who
Right.
has the information, you
Right.
know. And once I did write my children's stories, I had no idea in terms of like how do you find an illustrator. Like I didn't know. But I had started looking online looking on social media or whatever for illustrators or whatever. And I had started like a day. I had been doing it for like a day. And then all of a sudden, this person just pops onto my social media. We were, you know, connected as we were friends.
Yeah.
Of course, I never heard of this person before ever in life. They were the first person that popped up, and they were like saying something about they had just hired their first employee because they have a new publishing company for children's books.
Hmm.
I was like, okay, let me call you.
Let me check you out.
Yeah, and so needless to say, that's my publisher, and it's a wrap. I didn't have to do any work.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I remember I had a time where I lost my wallet, right? So it was like the process of trying to get everything back, you know, your ID, and Social Security, and your cards. So I really needed some money at that time, so because I didn't have no cash on me. And so, you know, I'm sitting back and I'm going about my day, and just so happened, I went inside a store. I was checking something out, tools. And I happened to look down on the ground when I came outside. I'm like, check you out, universe. Check you out. Oh, man. But it's just those moments as to where it's like, you put your attention out there of what it is that you want. I wanted some money at the time because I needed it, and boom, it just so happened, you know. And it's crazy because when I think about that, it's like I put the attention out there. I didn't think nothing else of it because my thought process is like, you know what, I gotta wait anyway, you know. So I gotta wait till I get everything straightened until I'm able to get my car. And for it to just happen, it's like, well, let me see what else I can possibly happen. You know, just putting my attention out there. So I'm gonna tell anybody, just put your attention out there on what it is that you want, and forget about it. just like simply forget about it, because I notice that like with a prayer, some people always constantly pray on the same thing so often, right? And then wonder why that particular prayer that they're praying for, or that prayer that they continuously have, is not working, like nothing is happening. And so I thought about it, and I'm like, well, if I'm praying for the same thing over and over and over again, then that shows that I have no faith that I'm going to get what it is that I'm praying for, because I'm continuously praying on it. So it's like I'm putting doubt out there that I'm not going to get what I'm asking for. So it made me think, like, all I have to do is say it once, put it out there, leave it be, because I know it's going to happen. When and where, don't know, you know, but you just know that it's going to happen, you know. And so when I learned to have that type of faith, and just, man, it was, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, we have to agree. And then I think a lot of times going back to what the lady had sent me in the email, that she said we often fail to be great because we don't know how to do things. And so not knowing how to do things will stop us dead in our tracks. And it's like, oh, I don't know how to do it, so, you know. But I think also there are things that we never even think about doing. It never even occurs to us to do it because we don't know how.
Right.
So like it might not ever occur to me to, you know, maybe make a movie because I don't know how to do it. But maybe if I knew how to do it, then I'd be like, oh, I want to make movies as well. You know what I'm saying? So that how, if we can start releasing that a little bit, like realizing that I don't have to know how.
Right.
All I really need to start doing is, again, recognizing your connection to all that is, and start learning how to tap into that flow. And you do that by quieting that chatter, getting quiet, starting to align with your spirit, align with that inner voice, starting to recognize that voice, and then putting it out there, like, what is it that you want to feel? Like, you know, I want to feel excited in my life. I want to, you know, feel, I don't know, like maybe helping people. You know, you want to have fun. You want to feel abundant. You want to feel healthy. Like really putting that stuff out. and you'd be surprised at the opportunities that now show up that you can now see that you hadn't even thought of before. And so I think that's like so rewarding to get something that you never even knew you wanted. And that you just like, oh, I love this.
So I find that quite amazing, because I had something like that, when you said it, I had something like that happen to me, and I didn't realize that I wanted that. You know, I really didn't. It was like, I didn't realize that I wanted to have my own, you know, my own business. And then when I just started to really dig into it, and I was like, I like this. You know, I like being my own boss. I like doing, you know, moving when I want to move. You know, I said, okay. So I totally agree with that. I totally agree. And we really have to get aligned with our energy. You know, I think that's something else that's really important with no matter how. Just whatever it is that you feel in the inside, start to radiate it. You know, when you want to learn how to do something, go out here, figure. You know, ask questions if need be. You know, learn about it. If something is sitting on your heart heavy, and the first thing that comes to your mind, I don't know how. Find a way to know how. You know, it's always answers. You know, sometimes we have answers within ourselves, and sometimes we may not really have the answer, but the universe is going to supply you with the answer in a form that we just don't know how it's going to come. You know, but the answer is always, it's going to find. It's going to find.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times people may, I don't know, no one's ever said this to me before, but people may think that this is like magical thinking, and like you're saying, well, I don't have to do anything, I can just put it out there. Well, I've been putting it out there and nothing's been happening. And that's a whole nother area that we will tackle, and you were speaking about the radiating it, what it is. So it is a way, there are kind of like secrets to how do you put it out there. Because as Stephen was indicating, like sometimes we can pray and pray and pray and pray for the same thing, and that perhaps that you're putting out there a lack of faith, that I keep asking for the same thing. But really it's more of how you're asking. Because if you're asking from a state of lack, a state of I don't have, a state of I'm going to need something outside of me to provide it for me. So it's things like that that will almost go opposite of what you want. And if you're not clear on what you want, because a lot of times we put out mixed messages, so we're praying for this, and at the same time we're continuously doing this, or we're continuously saying this. And our very words are prayers. Like the very words that we say on a day-to-day basis, those are really prayers to the universe. And so a lot of times we're not aware of what the prayer is that we're saying. We're actually saying and doing things opposite of what we would truly want. And so all that goes back into getting aligned with who you really are, knowing what you really want, listening to that voice, knowing which voice is the voice that is going to represent your highest self and your highest good. So thank you so much.
Yes, I enjoy it.
I always enjoy talking to you, so I appreciate you. So anyway, I hope you guys are able to take something out of this. Just don't let not knowing how to do something to stop you from doing it, or even to stop you from having a dream. And I know I was getting ready to close, but there have been so many dreams that I have not had simply because I didn't know how.
Same here.
Yes. So I look forward to chatting with you again next week. And until then, this is Arvette.
This is Stephen.
See you then.